Princess Anna was born after much longing and prayer following the king and queen's marriage. The king and queen were obviously delighted at her birth, but the entire country also celebrated the occasion. There was a wave of joy everywhere, and festivities were held all around. The king could hardly believe that he had become the father of such a lovely daughter. He would repeatedly go to sit beside the queen and look at the little princess with joy. The queen would smile as she watched him. She even suggested that he hold the princess, but the king declined, saying, "She's so tiny, she might slip from my arms." Princess Anna was extraordinarily beautiful. Her eyes were large, her complexion fair, and her hair golden. When she cried, it felt as if the sound of tinkling bells filled the air. No one could describe the sound of her laughter, as such young children do not laugh but only smile. The king no longer felt at ease in his court. His thoughts were always with Princess Anna. She was being raised with immense love and care. Her toys were brought from across the 7 seas. Skilled artisans made her clothes from the finest silk, and her shoes were crafted from the skins of exotic birds rather than ordinary leather. Special maids were appointed to look after her, who stayed close to her at all times. At night, the queen would sleep on one side of the bed, the king on the other, and Princess Anna would sleep in the middle. She would rest her head on the queen's arm and a leg on the king, falling into a deep sleep. Princess Anna was being brought up with such indulgence that it spoiled her to some extent, making her quite rude. She wouldn't listen to anyone, and if she didn't like a certain food, she would throw it away. She would shout at the queen and, though she didn't shout at her father, she would grind her teeth if she didn't like something he said. It wasn't just the queen she disobeyed. She also ignored the king's words. These were all incidents from her childhood. The king and queen overlooked these behaviors because she was a child, their only child, and had been born many years after their marriage. However, the king realized the severity of the issue on her 16th birthday when, in a fit of rage, she threw the birthday cake to the ground. Ministers, advisors, and nobles had attended the celebration with their wives. Princess Anna's behavior deeply embarrassed the king, who then left the gathering. Even the queen was stunned. When she reprimanded the princess, Anna began to argue with her and threw the glasses of drinks on the floor before running to her room in tears. The next day, everyone was talking about her behavior. People were deeply saddened, saying that their king was so good and benevolent, but look at his daughter, so irritable, ill-tempered, and rude. They said, "May God not give such a daughter even to an enemy." The king also began to hear these things. He was very sorrowful. He realized that his and the queen's excessive pampering had spoiled the princess. It was their mistake, but what could be done now? The queen was also very troubled. After the birthday incident, the king and queen had reduced their conversations with the princess, but she didn't care at all. If she had admitted her mistake, she might have tried to change, but she had never considered herself wrong. Seeing the king so quiet one day, his loyal and wise minister said, "Your Majesty, things will not improve this way. We need to devise a plan to set things right. I believe that if the princess gets married, she might improve." The king replied, "Who would marry a rude and impolite girl? No young man would be willing to marry Princess Anna." Hearing the king's words, the minister thought for a while. After much thinking, he said, "Your Majesty, if you follow my advice, I am sure everything will be fine." The king said helplessly, "O minister, we are ready to follow your every word to get out of this trouble." The minister said, "First of all, you need to adopt a stricter demeanor and tone. Constantly speaking gently to children makes them arrogant. I'll tell you the second thing later." The king agreed that he would do so. When he reached the palace, Princess Anna was in a good mood. Seeing her father, she ran towards him and lovingly held his hand. "Father, please don't be angry with me." The king withdrew his hand from hers and said sternly, "Princess, you should observe the decorum of the palace. We are the emperor of this kingdom. It is true that we are your father, but there should also be some manners." Saying this, the king walked out quickly. Princess Anna was left standing in shock, her mouth agape. The king's words had scared her, though she was also angry. She complained to the queen. The queen, already frustrated with her bad behavior, replied indifferently, "You are so grown up now, learn some manners." Princess Anna did not regard her mother much. Hearing her words, she stomped off in anger. At night, the king said to the queen, "We now wish to arrange Princess Anna's marriage." The queen replied sadly, "Who will marry her? Her bad temper is known to everyone." The queen's words struck the king deeply, and his eyes filled with tears. He fell silent. After all these events, Princess Anna had confined herself to her room. In the evening, when the minister came to see the king remembered that the minister had promised to suggest something regarding the princess. He immediately summoned the minister, and the two of them sat in a room, speaking in hushed tones. The next day, on the king's instructions, the queen informed Princess Anna that her marriage had been arranged. Upon hearing this, the princess burst out, "Yes, yes, go ahead with my marriage. I don't want to stay here anymore." A few days later, the wedding ceremony took place. In the evening, the princess was sent off with her husband in a carriage. The wedding was very simple. There were no drums or fireworks. Princess Anna was so angry during the entire time that she didn't even ask who she was marrying, nor did she see her groom. Moreover, she didn't hug and cry with the king and queen at the time of departure, because she was very upset with them. After a short while, the carriage stopped. They had reached their destination, which was the young man's home. The young man got down and stood outside. When he saw that the princess was not making any move to get down, he said sternly, "Princess, please get down now. There are no maids here to hold your hand and help you down. I am a woodcutter. I used to do all the work myself, and now I'll have you do it. I have faced many hardships in life, but now it's time for some comfort." The princess was taken aback. Her marriage had been arranged with a woodcutter. Tears of sorrow and shame filled her eyes. Seeing her cry, the woodcutter softened. "Seeing tears in your eyes over my hardship makes me happy. Good wives are like this. Don't misunderstand. I cried because I was married off to a woodcutter. I never expected this from my father," Princess Anna said angrily as she got down from the carriage. The woodcutter laughed. "So what were you thinking? That a rude girl like you would marry a prince? You're calling me rude to my face." The princess screamed. "I'm saying it to your face because people say the same behind your back. It was the king's order that I marry you. I was forced. Otherwise, I would never have agreed to marry a girl like you. They've offloaded their problem onto me, and now I'll have to endure it for the rest of my life." Hearing these insulting words from the woodcutter, the princess started crying loudly. The woodcutter was unnerved by her crying but didn't show it. He said to the princess, "If you don't stop crying, I'll leave you in the forest." Lions and leopards may not come out during the day, but they certainly do at night. This threat worked, and the princess stopped crying. The woodcutter led her inside the house. The house was quite big, and it had an even bigger yard, but the furnishings were very simple. The princess sat to one side with a sullen face. The woodcutter went to the kitchen to prepare food. The princess was hungry, so she ate quietly. She remained silent during the meal. After eating, she said, "I am resigned to my fate, but father and mother did not do right by me." The woodcutter replied bitterly, "You remember their injustice, but have you forgotten what you did? You took advantage of their pampering. You were an only child, so they loved you very much, fulfilled your every wish, and agreed to everything you said. And in return, you became obstinate and rude. Little children throw tantrums, and it looks cute, but big girls like you throwing tantrums look ridiculous. If it were up to me, I'd put such girls in front of a wild bull so that they could learn a lesson." Hearing this, the princess started crying again. "You are insulting me. Now that you are my wife, I am mentioning your bad traits, so that you can leave them behind, and we can live happily together. Remember how rude you were on your birthday." The woodcutter reminded her. The princess was startled. "How do you know? This is known to every child in our country. That day, 2 women in our neighborhood were fighting, and one cursed the other by saying, 'May your child be as rude as the princess.'" Hearing this, the princess's face turned red with shame. Listening to the woodcutter, she began to realize that she had indeed wronged her parents. They loved her so much, but she had always taken advantage of that love. Thinking about these things, she started crying again. The woodcutter said, "Wake me up early in the morning. I will need to cut more wood to manage our household expenses properly. Since you are the daughter of a king, you must be very extravagant. You will also have to work to manage the household expenses. During the day, villagers will come to buy eggs, so you will have to collect and sell the eggs from the chicken coop." There were only 2 sounds in the room. The woodcutter speaking and the princess sobbing. The princess was missing her parents intensely. The next morning, when the woodcutter woke up, he was very surprised. The princess had arranged eggs and bread for him. "Did you make this breakfast?" he asked in amazement. "No, I got these things from a local boy who fetched them from the bakery. I don't know how to cook at all." Saying this, the princess's face turned red with shame. She began to wonder what her woodcutter husband would think of her, now that she was a grown woman who couldn't even cook. After breakfast he go to forest for his work. When the woodcutter returned home in the evening, he was even more surprised than in the morning. The princess was standing in the middle of the yard, with a dupatta tied around her waist, sweeping the floor. Chickens were roaming around her, and although the door was open, they weren't running outside. He approached the princess and said, "Look what I brought for you." The princess quickly came to him. She seemed like a changed person. Unlike yesterday, there was no anger or harshness on her face. The woodcutter placed many red berries in her hand, saying, "I picked these from the forest for you." The princess started eating the berries with delight and said, "These are very tasty." Hearing the princess's voice made him feel very good. It felt as if music was playing all around. Yesterday, her voice was such that it made one want to block their ears. I have also arranged for dinner from the same boy in the neighborhood. I give him 2 gold coins as a reward, and he quickly does my tasks, the princess happily told the woodcutter. After dinner, the woodcutter said to the princess, I am very happy that you have changed now. The princess said, listening to you, I realized how rude and ill-mannered I was. I caused my parents a lot of trouble and hurt them deeply. I want to meet them and ask for their forgiveness. Will you take me to them? The woodcutter, startled, immediately replied, never. If you go there, you'll stay there. What will I do? Who will feed my chickens? Who will clean the house? And who will prepare my meals? The princess, blushing, said, I will come back after meeting them. My real home is here now. Hearing this, the woodcutter was so happy that he felt like shouting for joy, but he controlled himself and softly said, all right, we will go to the palace tomorrow. But if I don't go to the forest to cut wood, I won't earn any money. Hearing this, the princess said, don't worry. I have many gold coins. I'll bring them from the palace tomorrow. The next day, when they reached the palace, the queen immediately hugged the princess and started crying. When the king was informed, he also came immediately. Seeing him, the princess cried and hugged him, saying, Father, please forgive me. I have realized my mistakes. I troubled all of you a lot and hurt you with my actions. I promise I won't behave like that again. The king's eyes were also filled with tears. He lovingly hugged the princess and said, children make mistakes. It's the duty of elders to forgive them. We have no complaints against you. In fact, we are happy that you realized your mistakes. Then he turned to the woodcutter and said, Prince Lucas, we are grateful to you for helping guide the princess back to the right path. The woodcutter, who was actually Prince Lucas, respectfully bowed to the king and said, It is my good fortune to have a wife like the princess. The princess listened to their conversation in amazement, while the queen stood smiling. Sensing her surprise, the king said, Daughter, it was our minister who advised us to have Prince Lucas disguise himself as a woodcutter and marry you. Prince Lucas is a wise young man. His words influenced you and made you realize your mistakes. We are very happy. With the princess's transformation, there was joy and celebration everywhere. The princess also sought forgiveness from the servants and attendants she had mistreated. She distributed gold coins among them, making them happy too. After dinner, the princess said to Prince Lucas, I will get ready, then we will leave. The king, surprised, asked, Daughter, where are you planning to go? The princess, blushing, replied, To our home, where our chickens are. And in the neighborhood, there is the boy who runs errands for me like a little brother. Hearing this, the king and queen burst into laughter. It was after a long time that the palace echoed with their laughter. However, the king did not send them back. He had the chickens brought to the palace to keep the princess happy. He also sent many gifts to the boy who fetched things from the market for the princess. After spending a few days in the palace, Prince Lucas took the princess to his kingdom, where they lived happily ever after.